you can get this installed. All you need to do is download the PlayStation Vue application. I'll leave the package file linked in the video description. You just copy it to the root of a USB drive that is in exFAT or FAT32 format, plug that into your PS4, and then simply go over to the etaHEN debug settings package installer and install the application from there, and then that will get it installed onto the PS4, and it will be available in the TV and video section or in the library, and you'll be able to launch it from there. So if we launch the PlayStation Vue application, we do get a message saying that the service requires you to sign into PSN. This needs to be bypassed. So to do that, we need to access the PlayStation 4 file system either through FTP or the PS4 Explorer Homebrew app, at which point you can then head into the MNT directory and then the sandbox directory and then the CUSA00960_000 folder, then the download 0 folder. And then once we're in this folder, we want to open up the POC files and then go into the download 0 folder in there, and you'll find local storage.aes. You want to copy that file into the location there in the download 0 folder on your PS4's file system, and that can only be accessed when you're actually running the PlayStation Vue application, because it's in the sandbox directory, so it's the stuff that's actually loaded when the application is loaded. So if you're not running the PlayStation Vue application, you will not be able to find that CUSA00960 folder, so you make sure you are running the application, and then you can copy that file in, and you should be good to go there. Then we just need to run the man-in-the-middle proxy. We can do this by going into the main POC folder, and then right-clicking in this folder and selecting the option to open in terminal. You can also hold down the Shift key on your keyboard to get the full right-click menu to find the Open in Terminal option. And then once you have that open, we can then simply type in Python, and that will run Python. If Python does not run, it will open up the Microsoft Store where you can install Python, so make sure you get it installed from the Microsoft Store. We can then type in exit here, and then simply install the man-in-the-middle proxy for Python, which we can do by typing in pip space install MITM proxy, and that will install the man-in-the-middle proxy using the pip installer. And then once that is installed, the next step is to just run the man-in-the-middle proxy, which we can do by typing in MITM proxy space -s space proxy.ey, and then that will run the proxy server, so it will inject the code whenever we run the PlayStation Vue application. Now, you might also have to allow access on your firewall in order for this to work. So once we have that set up, we just need to edit our network settings on the PS4 and just make sure you tell it to use custom network settings. And when you get to the proxy server section, make sure you tell it to use a proxy server and then enter your computer's IP address as the IP address of the proxy and the port number as 8080, and you should be good to go there. So once you have all of that entered, whenever we launch the PlayStation Vue application now, it should inject the required code, and then when we launch it, we can see we get a message here. That is not your typical message. We just get a yeah boy message showing up here on the console, and if you click OK, it just pops up again, and then that shows that the vulnerability is successfully being triggered there. So that's the proof of concept. That's all it does at the moment. If you want to install the PlayStation Vue application, you can, but that is version 1.01. I believe the main exploit might require a higher version like 1.29, but we'll have to wait until there's a full userland exploit available to be able to play around a little bit more with this. So another big development is this post from Zeko saying that blank has said an alternative to DUP is now possible, and will soon have the poopsploit on the PS5 from 4.03 to 12.0, and on the PS4 from 1.76 to 13.0. So DUP or dupe, I believe, refers to some kind of syscall for the console that you typically cannot use with most userland exploits because of some kind of privilege issue, but it can be used on the mastercore exploit, BD Jailbreak, and WebKit, which is why we can use those userland exploits to trigger the poopsploit, but not the Netflix and hack and Y2 Jailbreak and other userland exploits. So that seems to be the issue at the moment, and the idea is that there may be now an alternative to using that syscall that could be implemented with the poopsploits to then allow it to be loaded with those existing userland exploits like YouTube Jailbreak and Netflix and hack, which would allow us to jailbreak up to 12.0 on the PS5 and 13.0 on the PS4. That is the general idea. Now, we have heard from @Gedgenie as well, saying that making poopsploit without dupe and finding another userland exploit with dupe, or both, and also saying for context, saying that other developers are working on a no-dupe poopsploit, and I am working on a userland with dupe, which may just be referring to the PlayStation Vue application for the PS4 implementation. whereas you have the other developers working on an alternative for the poopsploits to then be loaded using other userland exploits. Now, for the PlayStation 5, there's a few updates here as well. First of all, the etaHEN 2.5b, there's another test build, lots of test builds coming out for etaHEN at the moment. So this particular test build adds another kstuff option, which is basically the ability to auto-pause kstuff on game launch, and you can also add a kstuff pause delay. So this is essentially the same as that plugin by Void Whisper covered in the previous episode. This is just being integrated as part of etaHEN itself, so you have the ability to pause kstop on game launch, add a custom pause delay of how many seconds you want to wait after launching the game before it actually pauses keystop, and then you also have an unpause keystop on game close from the previous test build, so that when you close the game, it will also unpause keystop automatically, so you no longer have to manually pause and unpause keystop. So basically, as you can see here, with those options enabled, if I run a game like Resident Evil 4 Remake, which is a fake package game I've got installed on this PS5, now it's 10 seconds after the game actually launches, not from the moment that you actually press X on the game, so it takes a while for the game to actually launch, and then once the game's launched, it's then whatever your delay is after the point that the game is properly loaded, that it will then pause kstop. So in this case, it's now counting 10 seconds down, and then once we're actually getting to the point where we're getting the logos showing up here for the game, we do get kstuff pausing automatically there. And then you can just run the game and kstuff is paused. You don't even have to think about it. You're getting better performance with kstuff being paused. And then when you go to close the game with the kstuff on game close option enabled, it just immediately re-enables kstuff when you close the game. Now, the problem wasn't that it would fail to close the game. That's an older issue that was resolved a while ago. The problem is that if you forget to re-enable kstuff, then when you next go to load another game, it will fail to launch because kstuff is paused. So having this option is just handy in case you accidentally forget to re-enable kstuff again. It does it automatically so you don't have to think about it, so you'll be able to launch your next homebrew application or game without having to worry about it not loading. So that's a new feature that is in the latest test build. Again, it's available in the Package Zoned Discord server. There'll be a link to it in the video description, and you just need to go to the etaHEN public test channel in that Discord server and go to the pins section where you'll find the latest test builds available that you can run. There was also another small update for Itemzflow. This is a public update, fixes some database corruption issues by switching to a different shortcut injecting method from Lightning Mods. So make sure you download and install that latest version. You can grab it from the Homebrew store, or if you're offline, simply download it from package-zone.com and install it with the debug settings package installer off a USB, and you'll be able to get the latest version installed because the previous version was causing some database corruption issues when it was trying to create the shortcut when you go to add one of your PS5 game dumps. So make sure you get the latest version to avoid database corruption. And then last but not least, from EchoStretch, we have some improvements coming to the dump runner. This is the alternative method of launching your PS5 games, or if you're not using etaHEN and you want to be able to run your PS5 game dumps, you're just using kstuff standalone, then you can use the dump runner to run your PS5 game dumps using the homebrew launcher from John Tornblom and using the dump runner from EchoStretch. So this is a test build at the moment. It's not a full release yet at the time that I'm recording, but as you can see here, what EchoStretch does is he loads up one of the games he's got set up with a dump runner. In this case, it's Minecraft. So he loads that normally using the homebrew launcher as you typically do. However, what this does is it now creates a shortcut on the home page to the game that is launched. So you only have to launch the game once from the homebrew launcher, and then it will create that shortcut on the home page, just like you would with any other application you have installed. It can be launched directly from the home page instead of having to use another application like Itemzflow or the homebrew launcher to launch your games. That is the general idea. Once the shortcut is created, you can see he then launches Minecraft again. After closing it, he launches it again directly from the home menu itself without having to run the homebrew launcher again, so it can just be launched directly from there. And the idea is to also get it working on a restart so that you could restart the PS5 and launch the game directly from the shortcut again without having to go through the homebrew launcher. So you only need the homebrew launcher to load the game initially to create the shortcut, and then once you have the shortcut, you can launch the game directly from the home menu, the same way you would with any other application like any PS4 homebrew or PS4 fake packages. The same idea. So that's a pretty nice feature that's been added in there. There is something similar